The wind howled softly through the rusty louvers of the Ogudu family home. Amara, barely 26, clutched her stomach, sweat beading down her face, not just from pain, but fear. It was midnight, and her contractions had started, but her husband, Femi, wasn't home. Again. In the distance, a baby cried. Not hers, not yet, but one she would soon find out was meant to change everything she believed about love and family. As the cries echoed again, Amara's mind drifted to the last fights they had. Femi had stormed out after she found lipstick stains on his shirt, a red far too bold for her reserved style. That night, as she battled through labor alone with just her sister, Kioma, beside her, she didn't know that she was not only birthing a child, but entering a storm that would shatter her marriage, question her sanity, and test every ounce of trust she had. Morning came slowly. As the cries of her newborn faded into quiet coos, Amara reached for the hospital-issued bracelet on the baby's wrist. Her eyes widened. The name read T. Ogudu, but she had requested her daughter be named Ifunanya. She confronted the nurse, who looked confused and then hurried away to check the system. By the time Amara returned home, unease had planted itself in her heart. Femi finally appeared, flowers in hand, and offered a forced smile. "Beautiful baby," he said, barely looking at her. Amara watched him. She knew that tone. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just about lipstick anymore. Late at night, Amara overheard Kioma speaking in hushed tones on the phone. "She must never find out," Kioma whispered. "It'll destroy her." Amara froze by the hallway, her pulse quickening. Who were they hiding something from? Who was she? The next morning, Amara tried to act normal. She asked Kioma if anything strange had happened while she was giving birth. Kioma deflected, smiling too hard. "You had a safe delivery. That's all that matters." But the seed of suspicion had already taken root. One evening, while folding clothes, Amara found a second phone hidden inside one of Femi's jacket pockets. Her hands trembled as she turned it on. Messages flooded the screen. One stood out. "She doesn't suspect anything. The baby looks just like me." It was from someone saved as R. The realization made her chest tighten. Was this about her? Was her husband having a child with another woman? Or worse, was her baby not his at all? Torn by doubt and desperate for answers, Amara swabbed her baby's cheek and took it for a DNA test. She didn't tell anyone, not Femi, not Kioma. 2 days later, the results came in. Her heart dropped. The baby wasn't biologically related to her. She stared at the papers, the words blurring. She had carried this child for 9 months, felt every kick, every contraction. How could this not be her child? Had there been a switch? Amara stormed the hospital. The receptionist hesitated when she demanded the delivery files. After much pleading, a junior nurse pulled her aside. "You weren't the only one in delivery that night. Another woman was rushed in, unconscious. Same ward. There was confusion, a power outage." The words hit her like a wave. Her baby had been switched. But was it accidental or intentional? Determined to find the truth, Amara dug deeper. She traced the other woman from the hospital logs. Rita Alika, 24, single, and missing since the birth. She lived in a rundown part of Mushin. Amara visited, pretending to be a friend. Inside Rita's tiny apartment, she found a half-packed bag and photos of a pregnant Rita. Her stomach turned when she saw Femi in one of them, holding Rita's belly with pride. Amara now knew the betrayal ran deeper than a baby switch. It was a planned theft. That night, Amara confronted Kioma. At first, she denied everything, but after Amara threw the hospital files and photos on the table, Kioma broke. "I didn't mean to lie," she sobbed. "Femi was scared you couldn't handle the truth. He told the nurses to switch the babies. Rita died during childbirth. He said it was better you didn't know." Amara fell to her knees. Everything had been a lie. Even her own sister had helped cover it. Days passed in silence. Amara could barely hold the baby. The child, now called Tonya, cried often. Her cries felt foreign, louder, heavier, strange. Each time Amara tried to soothe her, a wall rose between them. She loved her, yes, but the knowing poisoned the bond. Femi acted like nothing happened. "She's your daughter now. That's what matters," he said casually, flipping through TV channels. Amara realized she was living with a man who could bury truth without remorse. Her trust was dead. One day, Amara received a brown envelope at her doorstep. Inside was a letter from Rita, written weeks before the birth. In it, Rita confessed she was afraid Femi would hurt her. She had no family and trusted no one. She begged whoever found the letter to tell her child the truth. Tears poured freely from Amara's eyes. She held Tonya tighter than ever. This baby, though not born of her blood, was now her legacy to protect. But it also meant war was coming, and she needed to prepare. Amara sat opposite Femi in their living room, the letter from Rita in her hand. She didn't speak at first, just stared. When she finally asked him if he had known Rita would die, he paused, then laughed bitterly. "Everyone dies, Amara. But she was unstable. I did what was best for the baby." His coldness chilled her to the bone. This wasn't just betrayal, it was calculated manipulation. She now saw Femi for what he truly was, a man who wore compassion like a costume and masked cruelty with charm. The guilt became too much for Kioma. She packed her bags early one morning and left a note. "Forgive me, sister. I thought I was protecting you, but I was part of your pain." Amara read the words with tears, but no sympathy. Alone in the house with Femi and a baby she had not birthed, Amara felt trapped. Yet, she now had one advantage. She knew the truth, and she was going to use it, but carefully. Revenge, she had learned, was like cooking, slow, intentional, and served hot. While taking Tonya for a routine checkup, Amara noticed a woman watching them from across the room, tall, with piercing eyes and a scar along her neck. She approached Amara quietly and said, "You don't know what you're holding, do you?" Amara's heart skipped. The woman handed her a card. "Come find me if you want to know why Rita really died." Then she disappeared into the crowd like a ghost. The mystery deepened. Rita's death wasn't just tragic, it might have been intentional. That night, Amara searched Femi's home office. Inside a locked drawer, she found a folder marked RA. Inside were signed forms, hospital letters, and a bank transaction showing Femi had paid someone N3 million days before Rita's death. Before she could take a picture, Femi walked in. "Looking for something?" he asked. Amara quickly dropped the file and pretended to be looking for bills. After she left, Femi burned the documents. But Amara had seen enough. He paid someone to silence Rita. Amara visited the card's address. It was a rundown private security agency. There, she met Detective Jibola, a suspended cop turned investigator. He told her Rita had contacted him weeks before she died, scared that Femi was planning something. "Femi isn't just a husband, he's a fixer. He cleans up messes permanently," Jibola warned. Amara trembled. What mess did Rita become? The detective looked her dead in the eye. A mother who refused to give up her child. Knowing she was being watched, Amara began living a double life. By day, she acted like the submissive wife, caring for Tonya, smiling at Femi, cooking his meals. But by night, she fed Jibola more clues, gathering proof, digging for people Femi had paid off. She found a nurse, now working in Ibadan, who confirmed the baby swap. On record, she sent a voice recording to Jibola. Every puzzle piece came together slowly, like threads in a deadly web. But one thing was missing: motive. Why go through all this? At the family lawyer's office, Amara stumbled upon something shocking. Femi's late mother had left a secret will. In it, she stipulated that only a child born within wedlock could inherit her estate, valued at over 200 million naira. The baby swap wasn't about love, it was about money. Rita's child wouldn't qualify unless she became Amara's. Femi married Amara to cover up his affair and used her to front Rita's child, all to secure the inheritance. Kioma returned unannounced, this time with someone unexpected. Mrs. Alika, Rita's estranged mother. She had come from Benin after hearing whispers of her daughter's death. One look at Tonya, and she began to cry. "That's my daughter's eyes." Amara was torn. The woman had a right to know her granddaughter, but if she revealed the truth, everything she had built would unravel. Still, seeing the pain in Mrs. Alka's face, she knew hiding the truth would make her no better than Femi. Amara stood in church, holding Tonya as the christening was about to begin. Mrs. Alka sat silently in the back row, watching. Femi grinned beside her, oblivious. When the pastor asked for the baby's full name, Amara's voice cracked. "Her name is Rita Tonya Alika Ogudu." Gasps spread through the room. Femi turned to her, furious. "What are you doing?" he hissed. Amara met his glare with steel in her eyes. Telling the truth, for once. She walked down the aisle with her head high, knowing war had just begun. That night, someone broke into Amara's home. She awoke to the sound of glass shattering. Clutching Tonya, she hid in the wardrobe and called Jibola. Within minutes, the power went out. A shadow moved across our hallway. Suddenly, gunshots rang outside. The gatekeeper had confronted the intruder. Police arrived shortly after. The man was caught, and in his wallet, a photo of Femi and 200,000 naira cash. Femi had sent someone to silence her, or worse. Amara knew. This was no longer just a story about motherhood. It was about survival. Amara stood at a podium, cameras flashing as journalists gathered. Jibola had advised her to go public. Exposure was the only shield strong enough to stop Femi. She cleared her throat and declared, "My name is Amara Ogudu. I was deceived into murdering a child not biologically mine in a plan orchestrated by my husband to access an inheritance." Gasps erupted. She held Tonya close. "This child deserves truth and justice. So does a real mother, Rita Alika, who died under suspicious circumstances. This is no longer a domestic matter, it's a crime." In that moment, Amara stopped being a victim and became a warrior. The press coverage exploded. Social media buzzed with sympathy and outrage. Hashtags like "Number Justice for Rita" and "Number Cries Beneath the Cradle" trended across platforms. Femi's businesses began to suffer. His political allies started to distance themselves. Femi tried to spin the narrative, calling Amara mentally unstable, claiming she was manipulated by rogue journalists. But the audio evidence, DNA reports, and hospital testimonies had already taken root. The world was listening and watching. One evening, Tonya developed a sudden raging fever. Her tiny body shook as she cried relentlessly. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed it as a rare genetic disorder, one inherited only through maternal bloodlines. Amara froze. The sickness confirmed one thing: Rita's blood truly ran through this child. And now, time was critical. A compatible donor was needed, someone from Rita's family. Amara had to convince Mrs. Alika to undergo a blood test, despite their strained trust. At first, Mrs. Alika was resistant. "You didn't protect my daughter when she was alive," she said bitterly. But as she stared at the frail child in the hospital crib, her heart softened. "This is all I have left of her." She agreed to the test. Days later, results confirmed she was a match. The treatment began. Watching Tonya slowly regain her strength, Amara wept quietly. "Thank you," she whispered. And for the first time, Mrs. Alika touched her shoulder gently and said, "You may not have birthed her, but you fought like a mother." One night, Amara received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the line was trembling. "I'm Femi's brother. We haven't spoken in years, but there's something you need to know. Our father did the same thing to our mother, swapped a baby to cover up a scandal." Amara's breath caught. "It runs in the family," he continued. "Femi didn't just learn this, he inherited it. Be careful, it's more dangerous than you think." The line went dead. A family curse had been reborn, and now it had a name. With enough evidence, Jibola and the police finally moved in. Femi was arrested at his office, cuffed in front of his staff. He wore a smile like armor. "You think this ends here?" he said as they dragged him into the van. "I created this family. I can unmake it." The courtroom buzzed. Charges included child endangerment, conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. Femi pled not guilty, but Amara stood firm. He stole a life. He won't steal justice. Trial day began with drama. Femi's defense claimed Amara was unfit to testify, accusing her of postpartum depression, fabricating a psychological report. But Amara's legal team struck back with receipts, DNA reports, and audio recordings. In court, Amara described the betrayal, the baby switch, the attempt on her life. "I was used, but not anymore," she said boldly. Femi for the first time looked uncertain. His past was now a mirror, reflecting everything he tried to bury. Just when the case seemed sealed, another twist came. Rita's father, thought to be dead, appeared in court. He was a retired general who had abandoned Rita and her mother long ago. Now, he came seeking redemption. He took the stand, supporting Amara's claims and condemning Femi's actions. "I failed my daughter in life. I won't fail her in death." His presence added a powerful weight to Amara's cause. The media exploded again. Everyone wanted justice. After weeks of testimony, the judge called for silence. The courtroom was packed. Femi stood tall, proud as ever, but the silence was broken as the judge read the verdict. "Guilty on all counts." Gasps echoed. Femi's face finally cracked. He turned to Amara, hatred and regret in his eyes, but Amara stared back with quiet defiance. "You lost the moment you used an innocent life for gain." Femi was sentenced to 18 years. Justice had been served, but at a great cost. Back home, Amara found a final letter hidden under Tonya's cradle, left behind by Rita. It was a letter to her daughter, filled with love, hope, and dreams. As Amara read it aloud to Tonya, her voice shook but didn't break. You were born in pain, surrounded by lies. But you are loved, truly loved, and your mother, both of us, will always protect you. Tonya, now healthy and giggling, reached out and touched Amara's lips. In that moment, the past, though painful, no longer held her captive. The cradle that once held lies now held truth, love, and legacy. In the weeks following the trial, peace settled slowly over Amara's home like harmattan dust, soft yet ever present. But forgiveness, that one sacred thing, didn't come so easily. Our mind still wandered at night, haunted by Femi's face and his final words. I created this family. Amara began therapy, encouraged by Mrs. Alika and Kioma. There, she spoke of grief, not just over Rita, but over her own lost innocence. I didn't just lose a baby, she told the therapist. I lost myself in that lie. Though Femi had been sentenced, his extended family didn't retreat quietly. His older brother, Chuka, filed a petition to challenge Amara's claim to the Ogdu inheritance. She is not the biological mother of the heir, he stated boldly in court. But Amara's lawyer countered with Rita's letter, Rita's father's testimony, and Amara's legal adoption documents. Amara fought for this child when others saw her as a pawn, the lawyer said. She is mother by law, spirit, and sacrifice. The court ruled in Amara's favor. The empire stayed with her and with Tonya. Kioma returned from a long spiritual retreat. Gone was her guilt-drenched silence. In its place was a woman ready to make things right. She moved back in with Amara temporarily and helped care for Tonya. I let fear silence me, she said one evening, but not anymore. Together, they launched the Rita Alika Foundation, offering support to vulnerable pregnant women across Nigeria. It became their way of turning tragedy into hope. Every life matters, Amara said in the launch speech, holding Tonya in one arm and Kioma's hand in the other. One morning, as the sun crept into the apartment, Amara heard a soft giggle from the crib. Tonya stood, her tiny hands clutching the wooden frame. Then she said it, clear and sweet. Mama. Tears sprang into Amara's eyes. It was just one word, but it carried the weight of 10 lifetimes. In that moment, the months of pain, the hospital visits, the trials, all of it faded. This was her child. No court, no bloodline, no headline could ever say otherwise. With Rita's father and mother beside her, Amara visited Rita's grave for the first time since the trial. The wind blew softly. Birds circled above. She knelt, placing fresh roses on the cold marble, and whispered, "She is safe now." I promise, Mrs. Alika wept quietly while the retired general stood motionless. She deserved more time, he muttered. Amara nodded. But her story is no longer buried. It's alive in Tonya, in me, and in the truth. In prison, Femi was restless, a disgraced king in a concrete jungle. But he wasn't done. He scribbled letters, one after the other, to contacts outside, former allies, secret business partners. His empire had fallen, but fragments still remained. And one of them, a certain Kemi, a former nurse, still owed him a favor. The letter simply read, "She took everything." Remind her what fear feels like. Darkness wasn't done with Amara. It was planning its return. Amara awoke to the sound of broken glass once more, just like that terrifying night months ago. But this time, she was prepared. She pressed a button under her bed, triggering a silent alarm linked to Jibola's private security team. The intruder, masked and armed, was caught within minutes. It was Kemi. Her confession, recorded at the station, shocked everyone. Femi said she needed to feel pain. He said love made her soft. Amara listened to the tape with a tight jaw. "Tell him, I'm not soft. I'm a storm now." Detective Jibola, now reinstated into the official force due to the case's national attention, met Amara in his office. "You've faced more in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime," he said. "I have an offer." He wanted Amara to become a civilian advocate for family crime victims, helping women who were abused, manipulated, or trapped like she once was. Amara hesitated. "Can I handle more pain?" Jibola smiled. "You're not handling pain anymore. You're turning it into power." At the foundation gala, Amara met Obina, a quiet, thoughtful pediatrician who had volunteered for Tonya's case during her recovery. They spoke for hours. He asked nothing about the past, only listened. Days turned into weeks. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners into shared laughter. One evening, he said, "You don't have to pretend with me. You don't have to be strong here. Amara looked into his eyes. For the first time in a long while, she smiled not from relief, but from joy. Amara had the old wooden cradle burned. In its place, she built a new one. Sleek, strong, handcrafted with her own hands, using help from a local artisan. She placed Tonya inside, who clapped and bounced in delight. As she watched her daughter sleep that night, Amara whispered, "No more cries beneath this cradle. Only dreams." The war had left scars, yes, but it had also birthed something stronger than blood. Purpose. Peace settled like evening dew, but Amara knew silence could be deceptive. She began having recurring dreams, Rita standing at the edge of a river, holding a baby and whispering, "Don't forget me." The dreams were vivid, almost spiritual. Amara confided in Kioma, who suggested a spiritual cleansing with the local prophetess known for untying ancestral knots. "Your spirit is still connected to the wound," the woman told Amara. "To truly move forward, you must lay the past to rest, not just in court, but in soul." Meanwhile, Femi orchestrated a small prison riot as a distraction. His true intention was to smuggle out a burner phone. With it, he reached out to a journalist, offering to sell his truth for a price. "Let me tell you who Amara really is," he said. But the journalist, sensing danger, contacted Jibola instead. A sting was set. The phone was traced. Femi lost his privileges, and his final link to the outside world was severed. "She always knew how to play better," he muttered behind bars. Even in the end, Obinna and Amara's relationship deepened. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to fix her pain. He simply stood beside it. Tonya began calling him Dada one quiet morning while playing. Amara froze, unsure what to feel. Later, Obinna gently asked, "Do you want me to correct her?" Amara looked at her daughter's eyes, bright and joyful. "No," she whispered. "She's never called anyone that before. Maybe it's time she had one." Just when Amara thought the Ogudu Empire drama was over, a courier delivered a dusty briefcase belonging to Femi's late father. Inside was an unsigned second will and an audio tape labeled "To my sons." On the tape, the elder Ogudu admitted to staging the baby swap. Femi mimicked years later. "This curse I leave to you, Femi, not as a blessing but a burden. Undo it if you're man enough." The tape revealed a deeper legacy of manipulation stretching back generations. A mysterious woman in red began appearing at Amara's foundation events, never speaking, just watching from the back. One evening, Kioma approached her. "Can we help you?" The woman simply handed her a card. If secrets had sisters, I'd be one. It turned out she was Rita's half-sister, conceived during a brief affair the general had while in the military. Her name was Adesua, and she had been watching from the shadows, afraid to come forward. "Rita didn't die alone," she whispered to Amara. "She cried my name." Adesua revealed Rita had contacted her weeks before her death, fearing for her life. She said someone was watching her. She suspected even the house staff had been paid off. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a setup. Amara brought this new testimony to Jibola. A new investigation was launched, unearthing surveillance footage from the old Ogudu estate. Footage that showed Rita arguing violently with a woman wearing a nurse's uniform. Kemi, already in jail, finally cracked. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she confessed. Femi said to scare her, just to pressure her into giving up the baby quietly. But Rita fought back. She wouldn't sign the papers. So I pushed her. She described how Rita fell, hitting her head. Femi arrived minutes later and covered it up. "He made it look like suicide. Said women like Rita were born to break." The confession was recorded and new charges were filed. Rita's name was officially cleared. The nation mourned Rita all over again. A public memorial was held, attended by thousands. Songs, speeches, and a candlelight procession lit the streets of Abuja. Her story became a national cautionary tale of love, betrayal, and justice. Amara, standing with Tonya and Adesua, said into the microphone, "She cried beneath a cradle. Today we lift your voice to the heavens. She was never just a victim. She was a mother, a warrior, and now she's free." Under a baobab tree in Enugu, Obinna knelt on one knee with a modest ring carved from wood and silver. "You've survived fire," he said. "Now it's time to walk in light. Will you be my wife?" Not because you need to be saved, but because you've saved me. Amara said nothing at first, her eyes brimming. Then she smiled. Yes, but I won't walk behind you. I'll walk beside you. They embraced, Tonya clapping and laughing in the background. This time, love was earned, not imposed. Amara published a memoir titled Cries Beneath the Cradle, detailing her journey. It became a bestseller across Africa and was adapted into a film within months. Proceeds funded shelters, legal aid clinics, and education programs under the Rita Alika Foundation. On the dedication page, she wrote, "To every woman whose truth was buried in silence, you are not alone. You never were." As the book hit shelves, Amara watched Tonya take her first unaided steps toward a world her mother had reshaped. Amara moved to Enugu with Obinna and Tonya to start a new chapter. The quiet hills, the slow breeze, and the echo of drums at night brought her unexpected peace. But every calm has its wind. One evening, while sorting books for her upcoming tour, she discovered a strange envelope tucked between the pages of Obinna's Bible. Inside was a photo of Obinna with a woman and a little boy, both of whom looked unsettlingly familiar. Amara confronted Obinna. He sighed, took her hands, and told the truth. Years ago, he was engaged to a woman named Nkiru. They had a son together, Chisom. But tragedy struck. A house fire killed both mother and child while Obinna was on call at the hospital. "I blamed myself," he said, tears filling his eyes. "So I buried it. But now, with you, I don't want secrets anymore." Amara said nothing for a long while, then whispered, "Grief doesn't disqualify love, but silence almost did." A week later, a private investigator sent Amara a cryptic message. "Chisom may be alive. Call me." She froze. At first, she thought it was a scam, but the man provided DNA samples from a child in a Lagos orphanage, a match to Obinna. Obinna was numb. But Nkiru's body was confirmed. The investigator replied, "The fire was staged. She was running from something." A buried truth began to rise again, and with it, danger followed. Amara and Obinna traveled to Lagos quietly. In a small government orphanage, they met Chisom, now 7 years old, bright-eyed and withdrawn. He had a small scar on his forehead, and when Obinna reached out, the boy instinctively stepped back. "He doesn't talk much," said the matron, "but he draws, and always draws this woman with sad eyes." It was Nkiru. A DNA test confirmed everything. Their child had lived. Digging deeper, Amara learned Nkiru had fled from a syndicate involved in trafficking newborns for international surrogacy. She had discovered it while working as a nurse. To protect Chisom, she staged her own death. But 2 months later, she vanished. Rumors pointed to a woman named Madam Naza, an underground broker once connected to Kimi, the same nurse who helped Femi. Amara's world tilted. Was Rita's case part of something bigger? Detective Jibola rejoined the investigation. The links were clear. Kemi, Madam Naza, Rita's tampered records, and even the court clerk who nearly altered Tonya's birth certificate. All paths led to a covert operation trafficking infants using false death reports. Amara realized Rita was never a random victim. She was a threat. She had stumbled into their business. This wasn't just about Femi's greed, Amara told Jibola. It was about silencing the one woman who knew. With Chisom now in her custody, Amara moved the family into a safe house in Asaba. The foundation's activities were paused, but even from hiding, Amara's fire didn't dim. She began compiling evidence, witness accounts, and leaked records. Kioma and Adesua helped discreetly, as did a rogue journalist from Amara's past, Rashid. "Let them try and bury the truth," Rashid said. "We'll flood the country with it." Madam Naza's reach was vast. She had moles in state hospitals, the judiciary, and even NGOs. One night, Amara received a parcel at the gate. Inside was a doll, burnt, cracked. It had the name Tonya carved into it. Panic spread like fire. Security was doubled. Jibola moved in with a special unit. But Amara didn't retreat. She addressed her staff. "This isn't just my fight anymore. This is for every mother who buried a baby that didn't have to die." Just as Rashid was about to publish the explosive story online, his website was hacked and the files vanished. Hard drives wiped, emails erased. "They don't play fair," he told Amara, frustrated. But Amara had anticipated it. A backup sat safely on 3 encrypted USBs, one in Enugu, one with Kioma, and one tucked inside Tonia's favorite storybook. "I've learned," she told Rashid, "that truth is like water. It always finds a crack." The story aired live on national TV. Rita's case, Kemi's confession, Chisholm's rescue, and the entire baby trafficking ring. Within 24 hours, it became the most watched expose in Nigerian broadcast history. Madam Naza's face hit every screen. Warrants were issued. Hospitals panicked. Victims came forward in droves. But as Amara stood on her balcony that night, holding Tonya in one hand and Chisholm in the other, she whispered, "We're not done yet. We've only just begun." Since the expose aired, Amara became a national heroine, but behind closed doors, she was burning out. Chisholm suffered nightmares, waking up screaming in languages he'd never been taught. Tonya began wetting the bed again and feared shadows. Obina suggested therapy, but in African homes, it was still taboo. "Let them talk," Amara said. "If they understood half of what we've survived, they'd be on their knees, praying, not gossiping." She hired a child psychologist, determined to break generational trauma. News broke of Femi's mysterious escape during a prison transport. 2 guards were found dead, and the van abandoned near the Benin border. Immediately, Amara's security was tripled. "Dead men don't stay buried when they still want revenge," Kioma warned. "He'll come for the child, the story, or your mind." But Amara stood her ground. "Let him try. I'm not the woman he left bleeding." Tonya began drawing pictures of a woman in a blue wrapper, always standing near a tree. When asked, she said, "She gives me dose when I sleep and tells me secrets." Amara was shaken. It was the exact image of Rita. The psychologist suggested Tonya might be developing empathic recall, picking up trauma passed to her as an infant. "Children don't forget warmth," she said. Tonya may be holding on to the only peace she ever knew. While cleaning her late sister's belongings, Adesua found an old cassette labeled, "In case I die." It was Rita's voice, calm, poised. "If you're hearing this, I didn't leave willingly. They came for me. Madame Naza, Femi, and someone else." Then came a chilling pause. "Obina, if you're hearing this, please forgive me. I knew things I couldn't tell you." Amara was shocked. "What does she mean, Obina?" she asked. "Did Rita know him too?" Obina confessed, "Years ago, before I met you, Rita worked at the hospital briefly during her nursing internship. We barely spoke, but she asked a lot of questions about maternity records. Could he have unknowingly given her access to files that led to her death? If I helped her without knowing, then I helped kill her," he whispered. Amara placed her hand on his chest. "Then let's make her death mean something." Jibola uncovered a shocking detail. Madame Naza's trafficking ring used a secret burial ground on the outskirts of Nsukka, where they discarded babies who didn't survive the smuggling. A mass grave. Dozens of tiny bones. Forgotten names. Amara stood at the site in silence. "Each one of these could have been Tonya," she said, "or Chizom." She promised to build a memorial there. No more babies will cry beneath the earth without a voice. Madame Naza resurfaced in Ghana, trying to cross into Togo. She was captured, but during interrogation, she said something eerie. "I didn't start this. I only perfected it. The real master still works in Abuja." The authorities were confused. Amara wasn't. "She's deflecting," Jibola said. "Or maybe we've still not seen the true monster." Amara started digging again, and what she found would shatter everything she believed. She discovered confidential records hidden deep in the Ministry of Health archives. They linked a powerful senator, Senator Dakari, now retired, to the hospital where all baby cases had first started. He was Femi's godfather, and also the biological father of Madame Naza. It wasn't just a ring, Amara said. It was a dynasty. Rita had uncovered it all, and that's why she had to die. Amara confronted Senator Dakari at his mansion, armed with files and hidden cameras. Calmly, she said, "I don't need to drag you through courts. I just need 5 minutes on live TV." Dakari sipped his tea and smiled. You think justice is loud, but real power is quiet. He offered her a deal. Walk away and receive a grant to expand our foundation worldwide. She looked him in the eye. No child's blood will build my dream. Amara aired her confrontation with the senator on her platform. The footage went viral. International agencies stepped in. Nigeria was forced to reopen court cases going back 20 years. Victims from across the continent began to speak up, but with fame came risk. One morning, Amara found a bloodied teddy bear on her doorstep. It had a note pinned to it. Lions may roar, but bullets whisper. She hugged her children closer, her voice still. Then let them whisper. I'm still roaring. A break-in occurred at Amara's foundation headquarters in the dead of night. Nothing was stolen, except Tonya's original birth certificate and a digital copy of Rita's voice note. It wasn't a robbery, it was a message. Jibola was furious. Whoever did this had insider help. Amara began investigating her own staff. We may have lit up the truth, she whispered to Obina, but we also drew moths and monsters. Madame Naza, now behind bars, suddenly fell gravely ill. Poisoned food. A prison staff member went missing. Before her death, she left behind a final scribbled note. Dakari always cleans his mess. You're next. Her death triggered public outcry. Amnesty groups called for protection of witnesses. Amara, in a trembling voice, addressed the nation. We've uncovered evil too powerful for one woman to silence, but if I fall, 10 more will rise. Kioma discovered unsent letters written by Rita during her final days. One addressed to Tonia, another to Amara. In them, Rita wrote, If you ever find my child, tell her I sang to her every night. I didn't run from her, I ran for her. Amara read the letter to Tonia during bedtime. The little girl didn't speak, but placed her hand over her mother's lips and whispered, She never left me. Amara broke down. Neither will I. Femi returned. His face was gaunt, his eyes darkened by time and cruelty. One rainy night, he snuck into Amara's compound, evading security. He didn't attack, he didn't scream, he just stood at the balcony watching her. I came to see what strength looks like when it wins, he said before vanishing into the shadows. Amara's breath caught in her chest. He's not back to fight, she said. He's back to finish. Jibola uncovered a chilling fact. Senator Dakari was also Femi's real father. Femi had been raised by the Ogudus as a favor to Dakari, who couldn't risk public scandal. That meant Dakari had been orchestrating events since Femi's birth. The truth broke Amara. This wasn't personal vengeance, she realized. This was generational evil, handed down like a throne. The cradle hadn't just eaten pain, it had inherited it. Dakari offered a meeting. Let the past die, he said. Use your voice to build something clean. He even offered to fund an international education trust in Rita's name, if Amara withdrew the investigation against him. Amara's heart tore in two. This could help millions of girls, she told Kioma. But it would mean burying Rita twice. In silence, she visited Rita's grave. A single butterfly landed on the tombstone. No deal. After months of therapy, Chisom finally spoke in full sentences. His first story was chilling. A man in dark glasses told me if I screamed, Mommy would vanish again. He described Senator Dakari perfectly, though they'd never met. Jibola recorded the testimony. It was enough to open a child abuse case on top of the trafficking charges. Amara held her son, eyes blazing. We're not just telling stories anymore. We're writing history. Senator Dakari was finally arrested. The courtroom overflowed. Journalists, activists, victims, and international observers all gathered. Dakari pleaded not guilty and called the evidence theatrics from a bitter woman. Amara was called to testify. She stood, voice calm. I may have been bitter, but bitterness didn't kill these babies. Power did. And now, that power is in a cage. The room erupted in applause, but the trial was far from over. Days later, Amara received a call from Femi. He had abducted a journalist from Rashid's team. Drop all charges against my father. or the next blood you bury will be on your own hands, he growled. Amara was crushed. How many lives do we lose before this war ends? She asked Jibola, but Tonia answered first. Only the ones we are too scared to save. Her words gave Amara strength. Amara launched a public broadcast revealing the threat, refusing to be silenced. Femi's hideout was traced through a voice glitch in the call. A tactical team raided the location and freed the journalist. Femi barely escaped. With all evidence presented, Senator Dakari was sentenced to life in prison, his assets seized and repurposed for child welfare. But Amara stood outside the courthouse and whispered, "Until Femi is buried by justice, the cradle still cries." The nation rejoiced over Dakari's sentencing, but Amara felt no victory. Femi was still loose. He began leaking old videos of Rita, distorted and malicious, claiming she had been involved in the trafficking syndicate and had faked her death to frame others. The media stared with doubt. Amara stood firm. When the guilty are cornered, they claw at the graves of the innocent. I won't let Rita's name be erased. She announced a global memorial for victims of child trafficking in Rita's name. A symbolic cradle was displayed at the foundation's headquarters, empty, carved with the names of over 70 confirmed child victims. But one morning, it was found burned to ash. No camera captured the culprit. Amara knew it was Femi, a message without words. He's not just trying to silence me, she told Jibola. He's trying to erase every memory of Rita. If he succeeds, she dies all over again. Tonia began having violent dreams. One night, she screamed so loud, the neighbors called the police. Through tears, she said, "The man with the lion eyes took mommy away again." Amara understood. It was Femi, invading her daughter's peace. A therapist explained it was trauma resonance. She's remembering what she couldn't express as a baby. Amara collapsed into her hands. Even silence isn't safe anymore. Rashid discovered someone inside the foundation had been feeding information to Femi. It was a staff member Amara had trusted since the early days, Angela, the gentle communications officer she confessed under pressure. He said if I didn't help him, he'd send my daughter back to the grave. I lost one child already, Amara. Amara's heart shattered. You became the thing that hurt you. Angela was arrested, but Amara wept. No one is born wicked. Some are just broken in darker places. Chisholm started drawing pictures again. This time he drew a cave, a mask, and a screaming woman. When asked, he said, "That's where he keeps his rage." Through analysis and tip-offs, Jibola discovered an abandoned cement factory near Lokoja that fit the drawings. A sting operation was planned, but Amara insisted on coming. This ends now, with my voice, with my hands, with the fire he gave me. The raid began at dawn. Inside, they found Femi, alone, thin, mad-eyed, surrounded by photos of Rita, twisted baby dolls, and burnt teddy bears. He had turned grief into obsession, and obsession into worship. When he saw Amara, he didn't run. He simply said, "You took her from me." Amara replied, "You killed her long before she died." As officers closed in, Femi tried to set himself on fire, but Jibola tackled him, sparing his life, barely. Femi was finally brought to trial. The nation watched with bated breath. Victims testified. Evidence poured in. Rita's voice note was played. The room fell into silence, like the very breath of Nigeria was holding still. When Amara stood, she faced him without trembling. "You called me weak, but I built an army from my pain. And now, your bloodline ends in chains." Femi was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. No one clapped. No one cheered. It felt like grief had reached its final punctuation. But Amara turned pain into purpose. A new law was passed, the Rita Child Protection Act, mandating tighter birth and adoption tracking. "I couldn't save Rita," she said, "but maybe Rita can still save others." Months later, Amara stood in Nsukka at the site of the former baby mass grave. The foundation had built a serene garden there. Flowers bloomed where bones once lay, and a statue of a cradle now stood at peace. Tonia held Amara's hand. Chisholm stood tall beside her. "Do you think Auntie Rita can see us?" he asked. Amara looked up at the sky. "I don't think." "I know." Amara published a memoir titled Cries Beneath the Cradle. It became a bestseller, translated into 9 languages. Schools adopted it. Mothers found strength in it. And the world finally knew Rito, not as a victim, but as a symbol. At the book launch, Amara whispered to herself, "You did it, Rita. You didn't die. You became a voice in every mother who refuses to be silent." Amara was invited to speak at the United Nations Conference on Human Trafficking. Standing beneath international flags, she said, "Africa is not just a continent of pain. It is a womb of voices rising from ash." Her words ignited a movement. International NGOs partnered with her foundation to establish the Rita Rescue Network, an initiative connecting orphaned or trafficked children with verified caregivers. Every year, Amara and the children wrote letters to Rita and placed them in a small box beneath her tree in Nsukka. Tonia's letter read, "Dear Auntie Rita, I don't remember your face, but I remember how safe I feel knowing you fought for me. Thank you for being my first light." Amara's hand trembled as she added her note. "We were both girls who were silenced, but your silence birthed my voice. I carry you in every breath I speak." Obinna proposed on the anniversary of Rita's burial. He knelt beneath the cradle statue and said, "We were broken by this war, but we healed because we walked through it together." Amara said yes, not because she needed saving, but because she finally understood. Survivors also deserve joy. Their wedding was small, beautiful, and quiet, just as Rita had once dreamed. Jibola compiled a full list of the children lost through the trafficking ring. Over 120 names were engraved into a black marble wall at the Rita Foundation. During the unveiling, people from all over Nigeria came forward, weeping, pointing at names, saying, "That was my niece. That's my sister. That could have been me." The wind that day felt holy, like voices long buried had begun to sing. A young woman named Maimuna, rescued through the foundation, gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Rita, saying, "I want my child to carry the name of a woman who died so we could all live." Amara held the baby in her arms. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the ache of loss, only the warmth of what had been built from it. Amara was offered a teaching position at a journalism institute in Kenya. She accepted. "Let me teach the next generation how to use words like hammers," she said, "because if stories broke us, stories must also rebuild us." Before leaving, she took one last look at the cradle garden. "You are no longer a grave," she whispered. "You are a birthplace." One day, Tonya found an old photograph of Rita in her teens. "She looks like me," she said. "Do you think I'm like her?" Amara smiled, tears misting her eyes. "You're braver than both of us. You are our second chance." Tonya folded the photo and put it under her pillow. From then on, she began calling herself Tonya Rita, a name made from brokenness woven back into gold. Femi died in prison, an overdose. No one claimed his body. Amara visited his grave, not to forgive him, but to bury the last shadow. "You were once a boy," she said quietly. "I wish someone had loved you before the darkness did." She left a single white stone on the grave, not as mercy, but as a final full stop to a sentence she never wanted to write. Years later, Chisom became a lawyer, Tonya Rita, a children's rights activist. The cradle garden became a national landmark. The phrase, "cries beneath the cradle," became a proverb among women, a way to say we rose from silence. Every time a child was rescued, a bell rang at the foundation. Amara, now older, would sit by the window and whisper, "Another one made it." That's all Rita ever wanted. Amara passed peacefully in her sleep at 82, surrounded by Chisom, Tonya Rita, Obinna, and the first baby girl ever saved by the Rita Foundation. Her funeral drew thousands, mothers, children, journalists, presidents. On her tombstone were engraved Rita's last words, "If I die, let it be a light. Let the babies live." And beside it, Amara's final message, "The cradle no longer cries, it sings now." The candlelight memorial had just ended when Tony and Rita returned to the foundation's private archive room. Now 22, tall like Amara, with her mother's fierce eyes and Rita's deep soul, she handled silence like a weapon. She sat before the encrypted server that stored testimonies from rescued children. Tonight, she was meant to clean up files for the Rita Archive project, but something caught her eye. A glitch. A folder labeled Cradle Web Locked, time-stamped years ago when Amara was still alive. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. It required 2 passwords. She only had one. The second was missing. Then, through the speaker, a soft audio file played itself. They think they're safe now, but the cradle is bigger than we thought, and it's gone digital. Tonia's heart dropped. She rushed into the media room and pulled up archived CCTV footage. She needed context. Who had uploaded the cradle web file? Who recorded that voice? There, in the corner of the screen from 7 years ago, someone Amara had trusted. A foundation tech staffer long believed dead in a supposed traffic accident. His name, Gideon Ume. She replayed the video, pausing on his face. Then something chilled her blood. Behind him, reflected faintly in the glass, was a familiar silhouette. Rita. But that was impossible. The next day, while speaking at a Lagos University event about child safety in the digital age, a nervous girl slipped Tonia a folded paper. "Read it when you're alone," she whispered. Later, in the privacy of her hotel room, Tonia opened the note. "I know what happened to Gideon. My sister disappeared the same day. The tech room was only the beginning. Ask about Project Iroko." A scent lingered on the paper. Burnt rubber and metal. Smoke. Chisholm, now a cybersecurity prodigy and legal consultant, helped her trace the phrase. Project Iroko was an inactive government youth initiative on record, but the system had been scrubbed clean after 2025. Through backdoor tracking, Chisholm discovered a hidden mirror site, a dark web link registered to Côte d'Ivoire. It had no homepage, just a login and a rotating symbol, a burning cradle wrapped in a tree's roots. What if Amara knew about this? Chisholm asked. What if she hid the second password on purpose? Tonia stared at her late mother's old storybook, the one where she used to hide her childhood treasures. Inside, on the last page, written faintly in red ink, "For the future flame. If the cradle ever cries again, use Rita's lullaby." Tonia returned to the server room alone. Her breath was slow, steady, as she typed RITASONG 2025 into the second password slot. The folder unlocked. Inside were dozens of hidden testimonies. Children who had been rescued then vanished, each file tagged with strange labels. Echoed, pulled, expired. They weren't names, they were statuses. She opened a file labeled Zara Echoed. It played a low-quality video of a girl in a digital therapy room. "They made me choose my sister or the passwords. I chose wrong." Tonia's body went cold. This wasn't just child trafficking. It was digital psychological warfare, training children like shadows. She had reopened the cradle. And this time, the cry wasn't just loud. It was coded and global. The deeper Tonia explored the cradle web files, the more twisted the truth became. Each child marked Echoed had been recorded giving a story. But the voices had been altered. The same words, spoken in different tones, painful, robotic, eerie. She called Chisholm at 2 a.m. "These aren't therapy sessions. They're training scripts. They're programming children using their own trauma." Chisholm said nothing for a long time, then whispered, "We're not dealing with a trafficking ring. This is something worse. This is psychological conditioning. Weaponized empathy." One of the expired files held GPS metadata. Coordinates pointing to Nouakchott, Mauritania. Tonia flew there under a student research guise. Chisholm protested, but she said, "If we wait, more voices go dark." In a desert orphanage funded by a French NGO, she met Jamila, a girl with one green eye and one brown, who hadn't spoken in 2 years. But when Tonia played Rita's lullaby on her phone, Jamila screamed, then whispered. She sang that before she vanished. The tall woman with the scar. Tonya froze. Scar? What scar? Jamila pointed to her own jaw, like a stitched smile. She said her name was Ari. Back in Lagos, Tonya and Chisholm dug through Rita's old medical files. No mention of anyone named Ari, but a scanned passport photo in a hidden subfolder caught Tonya's eye. Rita with another nurse, both smiling during a student exchange in Ghana. The other woman had a faint scar along her jaw. Her name, Arinola Adeshina, Rita's roommate. Presumed dead in 2021 during a boat accident on the Volta River, but her signature had appeared on 5 of the Cradle Web's encrypted documents. Rita didn't die alone, Tonya whispered. She left someone behind, someone who kept the fire burning the wrong way. A tip from Rashid, now an investigative journalist embedded in West Africa, led them to whispers of a syndicate known only as the Black Cradle. It operated on both data and silence. Children weren't trafficked physically anymore. They were turned into digital ghosts, trained to manipulate algorithms, create fake therapy loops, and echo trauma-based scripts to bait donors and traffic new victims. And the worst part? The Rita Foundation's Global Tech Grant, signed posthumously by partners Amara once trusted, was linked to one of the data nodes in the chain. Tonya was horrified. They're using my mother's legacy to feed this. Late one night, Tonya received a file from an unknown sender. It was an old webcam recording, low-res and glitchy. At first, it was static. Then Rita's voice broke through. If you're seeing this, it means I failed. Or maybe you succeeded where I couldn't. Rita appeared, eyes hollow but alive. Ari made a choice I couldn't. She believed justice had to go through fire, not law. If you find her, don't kill her. Understand her. Then came a glitch and Rita's final line, half corrupted. The cradle was never just a place, it was a system. Tonya sat in silence. She wasn't chasing criminals anymore. She was chasing an idea. One born from love, broken by betrayal and reborn in code. And the only way to stop it was to finish Rita's last mission. Chisholm and Tonya stayed up all night decoding the metadata embedded in Rita's webcam message. Hidden inside the static was a link to a private drive titled Protocol R Flamebreaker. Inside were encrypted files labeled Foundations, Sacrifices, Ari, Dark Contracts. Rita didn't just suspect a system, Tonya said, her voice low. She documented it and built a way to destroy it. But the files were corrupted, scrambled with a quantum encryption signature that was banned globally. Only one person had ever successfully cracked that format. Arinola Adeshina. Tonya traveled to Ghana under a humanitarian summit disguise. Rashid arranged a meeting with an ex-coder turned whistleblower known as Mikolo, who once worked with the Black Cradle before escaping to Accra. You don't find Harry, he said in a trembling voice. She finds you, if she thinks you're worth saving or destroying. Then he handed Tonya a thumb drive. I saved one file before I ran. It's a message from Rita, but it was never meant for the public, only for Ari. Back in her hotel, Tonya played the file. Rita's voice cracked from fatigue and grief. Ari, if you're alive, you're too far gone. But if you're listening, I forgive you. I still love you, but we were supposed to build light, not learn to burn. Tonya closed her eyes. The fire wasn't just coming. It had already been lit. The fire led Tonya to a decommissioned Anglican orphanage in Cape Coast. The building was nearly in ruins. But in the basement, she found something chilling. Rows of servers humming quietly beneath broken crucifixes. A woman stood in the shadows, her face barely lit by a flickering candle. Scarred jaw, salt and pepper dreadlocks, white kaftan smeared with dust and data tags. Ari, you walked into a grave, she said calmly. Do you think your mother didn't know where this would end? Tonya raised her chin. She knew. That's why I'm here, to finish it the right way. Ari stepped forward. Then let's see if you can survive the fire she refused to light. Ari didn't attack. She gave Tonya a tour. They descended into what she called the echo chamber, an underground facility where digital simulations of real children's voices was synthesized into AI avatars. They are not real children, Ari said. They are programs built from true pain to manipulate corrupt hearts, politicians, donors, elites. It's how we fund rescues when systems fail. Tonya was horrified. This is exploitation dressed in purpose. Ari turned sharply. And what has your foundation done lately? Band-aids, sympathy. Meanwhile, I've dismantled 10 trafficking hubs with this. Would Rita rather I be righteous or effective? Tonya's hand hovered near her hidden mic. This is bigger than right and wrong. This is becoming the enemy to beat them. Ari smirked. Then maybe, I finally found someone who understands. Before Tonya could leave, Ari gave her a challenge. One child, she said, held in the Niger Delta, a Bates orphan. You can use my system to expose the network or walk away and try through legal means and red tape. She placed a device in Tonya's hand, loaded with an AI-simulated trauma file meant to lure traffickers into the open. Your mother refused this tool, Ari whispered. You don't have to. Tonya stood at a crossroads, Amara's teachings in one ear, Rita's ghost in the other, and Ari's fire burning at her feet, and far away. A child waited. Tonya sat alone in a safe house in Port Harcourt, staring at the black device Ari gave her. In it was a simulation, voice, trauma story, visuals, all designed to bait traffickers into believing a new victim was ready for sale. With trembling hands, she activated it. An AI avatar named Ada cried into a camera. They locked me in a room. I don't remember light. Chisholm called just as it uploaded. Tonya, this is going too far. She whispered. If I don't do this, the real Ada dies. You know that. Within 6 hours, the web pinged. 3 buyer accounts activated. Tonya had set the trap. Now, she had to survive it. The rescue team, masked and armed, raided the compound based on Ari's intel and Tonya's digital baits. The building, an old fishery warehouse, held 8 children, malnourished and wired with digital tags for live stream trafficking. Tonya stayed behind in the van. She watched the monitors, listened to the static, until the screen flickered. Then a face appeared. Senator Dakore's surviving son, long thought missing, the real architect of the Black Cradle's digital evolution. He smiled coldly. Your mother lit a match. Your aunt poured oil. You brought the flame to the altar. Before she could reply, the screen went dark. News broke that the Rita Foundation had aided a sting operation, but that AI trauma bait was used in the process. Critics called it unethical. Former board members resigned. Funding was threatened. Rashid released an article defending her titled, The Fire Beneath Her Feet, How Tonya Rita Burned Through the Darkness. But the fallout left scars. Obinna, now old and retired, visited her. You did what you had to do, he said, but never let the means define the legacy. Tonya broke down in his arms. I didn't become my mother. I became the war she tried to stop. He whispered. No. You ended it. At the Cradle Memorial in Nosuka, a new name was added to the Black Stone Wall. Unknown child, rescued from silence. Tonya placed a rose beside it. Behind her, survivors from Nigeria, Ghana, Mauritania, and Liberia gathered. They didn't cry. They sang. A new program was launched, Flamebreaker Initiative, designed to rescue children, but governed by ethics, not vengeance. The board? Survivors only. As Tonya stepped up to the microphone, she said, The cradle has burned, but not in destruction, in purification. It sings not in sorrow, but in memory. And from now on, every cry will be answered with fire and truth. Years passed. Tonya Rita became a global ambassador for digital child safety, but she never forgot her roots. On the 25th anniversary of Amara's passing, she returned to the garden with Chisholm and their adopted daughter Ada Rita, named after the AI that helped save real lives. As twilight painted the sky, Ada asked, Mama, why do people come here and cry? Tonya smiled, eyes shimmering. Because this was once a place of sorrow, but now it's where broken stories get rewritten. She knelt, touching the cradle statue gently. No more cries beneath the cradle, she whispered. Only voices rising. And far above, somewhere in the wind, Rita smiled.